So car videos, that's the thing that people do, right? Part of the 100 videos in 100 days that I'm doing is I want to try and experiment with other types of videos that other people do, just to try and get a vibe for them. And obviously people really like doing car videos because it's like you're in a studio booth, you're in an audio engineering booth, and everything sounds really good. Especially when you're doing something with like a phone. Phones have really good microphones these days, but they really only work in something like this. You can still probably hear like the back end of my engine, a little bit of the AC on, because it's hot as fuck today. And I'm drinking hot coffee. Just the kind of guy I am. The thing that I wanted to talk about today is collectibles. Collectibles and collecting and that kind of shit. When I was a little kid, my parents had a little bit of a guilt complex for a while. And the reason why this was is my brother, God, it's so fucking hot in here. My brother was 12 years older than me, is 12 years older than me. And when he was growing up, my parents bought him every single one of the original Star Wars toys. From all three of the movies. He had every action figure, he had every playset, every vehicle, everything. And before they got pregnant with me, they ended up selling all of it in a garage sale. It was only when I was about 3 or 4 years old they realized how much all of that was actually worth. And that was back in, you know, the mid-80s. So these days it's worth a shit ton. So they got pretty upset about that. Then, sometime in like the late 80s or like even 1990s, something like that, all these stories were coming out about families finding old baseball cards and selling them for insane amounts of money. So my parents, in their infinite wisdom, were like, well, we're just going to start buying Jeff baseball cards all the time, and then eventually, someday, when he's older, he'll be able to sell them for a ton of money and be able to pay for college with his baseball cards. Which is really funny because that's what every other fucking middle class family at that time started doing. Everybody got these same fucking baseball cards from Fleer and Top and Upper Deck, you know, all these like 89, 90, 91, 92 era baseball cards. And they're worth nothing. Like, I went once to a baseball card shop with them, and he said, if you pay me $5, I'll take them off your hands. Like, I'll find a spot somewhere in my trash for them, because they're worth nothing. And that kind of thing always makes me really interested in collectibles, because like then, you know, you got into this like, already action figures are big business, you know, He-Man, Transformers, G.I. Joe, all that kind of shit, but it started blowing up even more, especially with like the collectible scene, so much so that they would make rare versions of action figures that you had to hunt to try and find, and they were supposed to be worth a whole lot more. You go these days and try and find them, and yeah, there's a few sellers on eBay and some people give a shit, but for the most part, no. These things didn't go up in value. They only hold a specific intrinsic value that's pretty much stayed the same the whole time. So that's always been really interesting to me too. But then as I grew up and grew older, I realized that the collectible market and the value of these things is really interesting. Things like cars. The moment you buy a car, that car is worth less than it was before. Even a brand new car. As soon as you drive away, it is worth less. Every single time. Unless it's a classic car that you've been, you know, bringing back up. There's a certain line where cars stop losing value and then start to gain value again. But at that point, I mean, this is a massive thing that you've had to take an immaculate amount of care of and barely drive and have a spot to just let it sit. And then it also depends on it having value, it being a desirable car that far into the future. So that's a tough one too. And then, you know, there's like, obviously there's art and there's all sorts of different other things. But the one that I found that is really interesting that never seems to depreciate in value as long as you take care of them, guns. In America, at least, guns don't lose value unless they break. as long as you take good care of them, you can buy a gun on sale for, you know, $400 or $500. Take really good care of it, maybe even spruce it up a little bit here and there, and resell the thing sometimes for twice the value. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I guess I became a little bit of a gun enthusiast, because not only is it fun to just go shoot, but it's also like, as a person who was raised doing collectible stuff and finding everything else that I like to collect ended up being worth shit, here's one that actually is worth money. Isn't that weird? It's just so weird to me. I don't know. That's not even getting into like art. Fuck, man. Anyway, in the comments, let me know some things that you like to collect, or some stories where you bought into the collectible phase, or if your parents did that shit too. Like, I'm interested. I think this kind of stuff's pretty fascinating. Anyway, see you tomorrow.